Hello, welcome to another episode of Field of Screams podcast. Today we will be talking about the movie VHS. It's time to hit a new franchise, so I figured the VHS franchise is a nice one to hit. They have a new movie recently, so we will hit that eventually. I have seen the first VHS and VHS 2 once, and I remember liking them a lot, but I don't remember them all too well, so I was like, it's time to give them another try. So with this first one, I feel like it makes sense to break this down into segments instead of just going beat by beat in the movie, because it is an anthology. The first segment I'll talk about is Tape 56, which is an overall summary. A group of criminals break into a seemingly abandoned house and discover more than they bargained for. So this segment kind of links all the other stories together. It gives a reason as to why you're watching multiple different stories. I recalled from the first time watching that there were some uncomfortable parts during this segment. I couldn't really remember why. And then as I got watching, it's showing video of these guys doing different stuff, getting together, robbing different houses, breaking down houses, and I'm like, I don't think that was what made me uncomfortable. But then it got to a scene where these guys approached a lady and her boyfriend. They held the boyfriend down and then they sexually assaulted the woman. And the scene lingered for a while. It's a very uncomfortable watch, and it really makes you not root for these guys. It tells you these guys are not good guys. I don't think anyone is rooting for them while watching this movie. After that uncomfortable bit, it then follows with the scene where the guy's videotaping him and his girlfriend, and it looks like they're about to have sex, and he has the video camera is hidden. Now during this scene, my Ring doorbell actually went off while I was watching it, and at first I was like, oh, it's a UPS man. So I kept letting the movie play, but then I noticed someone standing at my front door, and I was like, oh god, because it looks kind of like a snuff film, or that I'm watching some hidden camera porno. I don't know. So, I'm embarrassed at this point. So I get out my remote. I try to pause it. It has low battery. It's not working too well. I'm taking forever. Someone keeps knocking at my door. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to fast forward it, and I fast forward it to a part. And when I hit play again, it's then showing flashbacks of them again sexually assaulting that lady. She's like screaming her head off. These guys are like lifting up her shirt, laughing, being total slime balls. The guy who was knocking at my door started looking through my window, which hopefully he didn't see what was going on the TV. Eventually I got the movie on an unsleazy part. I then paused it, and when I approached the door, I opened the door and I didn't know the guy standing at my front door, and I was really embarrassed, to be honest. Like, my face was probably red. It probably looked totally wrong, especially if he saw what I was watching. And I was like, yeah? And he goes, and he said some name. And like in the moment, like I almost felt panicked. I'm like, no one by that name lives here. And he just goes, oh. And I just go, yeah. And we both stand there for a couple minutes. But then it kind of kicked off in my head. He was looking for my next door neighbor. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you're just a house over wrong. Like, you need to be over there. And I pointed to the right house. And he's like, oh, thank you. And then he walked away, got in his car. But then the thought in my head is, man, he's probably telling my neighbor that I'm a complete weirdo and I was watching some weird shit on the TV. But getting past those bits, I will say, I feel like this little segment that connects them, it does connect the overall theme of all the movies being very dark and gritty and not afraid to show you whatever. It keeps you in suspense. I mean, after this little bit, you think that anything could possibly go down in these videos. And I do think it makes it a little more scarier in a way. Do we need the sexual assault scene? No, we don't. But I mean, just the overall lighting and atmosphere of the guys going through the haunted house and, them being killed off one by one. I don't think it's too bad. I think it goes on a little too long sometimes. If they're going to shave off some minutes, this is probably where they could do it. But I mean, overall, I think it kind of connects the theme, and it's just a little too bloated. And that's just my overall thoughts of this little segment that connects it all. The next segment I'll talk about is Amateur Night, which, in overall summary, three friends encounter a mysterious young woman. That's what they have written down. I would say this segment is probably the most memorable one out of all the segments. Whenever the trailer dropped for this movie, I remember just watching it, and it shows that girl, the mysterious woman, and she just kind of looks at the camera and she's like, "I like you." But there's just like something off about how she looks and how she's looking at the camera. This is definitely a memorable one. And if you're going to have a anthology, I think it's pretty important to start off with a bang, and this one does start off with a bang. The three friends in Amateur Night. Again, it was kind of a common theme early on in the movie. A lot of the dudes in this movie are kind of slime balls. And these guys kind of fit that description. The main one who you're kind of following around, he's not as much of a slime ball as the other dudes, but it's really interesting. The mysterious woman that plays the girl who becomes like a vampire or whatever she's supposed to be. Some people said a siren. She doesn't say very many words at all, but she does such a good job that I feel like you feel a lot of emotions for her as this little segment's going on. At first, like, you're kind of weirded out by her, but then there's a part where like they get her to the hotel, and it's almost like these guys are like taking advantage of her, and like there's a bit where like I start to feel like just really bad for her, and I'm like, man, like this sucks. But then she like turns it up, and it gets like really scary. This is a pretty scary segment. There's literally a moment during this where I think one or two of the guys are dead. The main guy's like trying to figure a way out of the room because she's like wreaking havoc by this point. And she literally rips off a dude's junk and just like spikes it on the ground like a football. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? Like people running around naked, there's blood everywhere. This girl looks terrifying. And, when the main character is like trying to run away, you're like, I kind of hope he gets away. Like, this would be a pretty scary situation. And it does a good job of, while he's running away, he falls and like he hurts himself like pretty bad, which I think he hurt his wrist. And I was like, dude, if there was a full-fledged vampire, like I could snap my wrist in half and I think I'd still be sprinting as fast as I could go. But again, like the girl who plays the vampire type thing, she approaches him, and of course he's terrified. And she kind of just says, "You don't like me?" And like she gets like all upset. And again, you feel bad for her. You're like, oh, this poor demon girl. But then she like screeches, and you're like, all right, dude, get out of there. But of course, the icing on the cake for this part is when she grows the wings and picks the guy up, and you're watching him fly off. Like, he almost gets to help. He meets other people. He's like, please help me. And you're like, oh, he's almost there. But then he gets lifted off the ground, and he looks up, and you just see wings, and he's flying up into the sky, and then he's pretty much dead. Like, it's an excellent start to this movie. The next segment's called The Second Honeymoon. The overall summary is: a married couple is stalked by a stranger while traveling in the American Southwest. So this little segment here, the first time I watched it, and I remembered the twist. As soon as it started, I was like, oh yeah, the girl's guilty. The girl's guilty who's traveling with this husband. But I do recall the first time I watched it, I was very intrigued by the concept. I was like, who is this stalker that looks at them every night? It's pretty spooky. And then the big reveal when it happened, like I was pretty shocked by it. I was like, oh my God, the girl's in on it with her girlfriend. That's insane. But like this time around when I watched it, since I've already seen it, like it was a bit spoiled for me. So I will say, as I was watching it, I'm like, man, they spend a lot of time on the road during this segment. It's almost like the director, he was like going on a trip, and he basically hired some actors, and he goes, hey, I'm going to go by a lot of cool sites. You guys want to act like a married couple, and then we'll just do something spooky like in a hotel room and just film it all in about 2 days. Or however long it took them while they were traveling. There is a nice amount of scenery. There are some ominous signs, but again, I feel like once you kind of know who the killer is and that the girl's in the bed, it's a little spoiled for you. And it did make me laugh at the end of the clip. The wife, she looks at her girlfriend who's like filming her, and she's like, "Did you delete the video?" And I was like, "Oh, no, obviously not. Like, it fell into the hands of other people." But I would say overall, if this was your first time watching this segment, it's pretty effective. But on repeat views, I feel like it kind of diminishes the more you watch it. The next segment I'll talk about is Tuesday the 17th. A supernatural killer threatens 4 holidaymakers in the woods. That's what the overall summary says. What's a holidaymaker? I've never heard that word used before, but okay. So yeah, basically these 4 like college students, high school students, whatever they're supposed to be, they go into the woods. And I do really enjoy the concept. I feel like on paper this works really well. I like the idea of the main girl making them all return so she can get revenge on the supernatural killer. I think that's all very cool. I love the tie-in to Friday the 13th. They're kind of just paying the homage, however you say it, to that franchise. But I will say the one thing that kind of threw me off is just how the supernatural killer looks. He's just like a very glitchy type figure, which they were going for that. And I think some people do enjoy that in this segment. But I will say, I was kind of like, it's okay. I don't know. I don't like the glitchiness. I think it would have been cooler if they just kind of would have had a different look to the killer. That would be my one criticism of this bit. But overall, it's pretty fun. Them going through the woods, them being killed off one by one, seeing this girl trying to get her revenge. Ultimately, it doesn't pay off. I think it'd be a little silly if someone was trying to get revenge on a supernatural entity, but, whatever. So yeah, this one's just okay for me. Again, I didn't care for the glitchiness of the supernatural killer, but... So the past 2 segments, I was kind of about on the rewatch, but I will say these final 2 segments, along with the first, I felt were still very strong. The next one, and it's labeled The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger. I don't know if that's actually the title or if they're just describing it, but it's basically a girl who's doing Zoom calls telling her boyfriend that she believes there's paranormal activity going on in her house at night. And this one spooked me. I was growing up, I felt like the paranormal activity movies, those always just creeped me out. I thought they were very scary. I thought they were very good films. And this is right up that alley. Once the segment started playing, I actually recalled the twist ending it happened, and it still didn't diminish it for me. I thought this did a great job with just the darkness in the background. And there's little paranormal kids just popping in and out, and man, there was one part where it's a little boy's literally in her room, and he's like, "Ah!" And she kind of goes scurrying in the corner. But I jumped a mile, and again, this isn't my first time watching it. I just forgot about it, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I forgot this one's really good. I really do like this one. And even when we finally get to the twist, where the little kids knock her out. And then the boyfriend, who's supposed to be away on a trip, he was actually inside the house, and he comes out and he's talking to these kids. The kids just look very scary, very freaky. But the boyfriend, he's talking to them, and he's like, "How many times are we gonna do this?" And he's almost kind of scolding them, and it kind of made me laugh at the end. The whole time I felt tense, and then once he's talking to the kids, it kind of took out the scariness a little bit, but it made me just chuckle. He's like, "Man, oh man, we keep doing this, guys, every week. When are we gonna chill out?" And he cuts open the girl's back and takes out a baby. And he looks over, and this is what made me laugh. He goes, "Now I'm gonna have to make this look like an accident." And it's how in the world are you gonna do that? Oh, babe, you fell. You scraped your back. I don't know. However he did it, but the ultimate twist of him gaslighting the girl, and then it turns out he's gaslighting other women too. That is just a very creepy end to it all. So again, it's good job filming, good job going around the corners and little demon ghost children popping out wherever. and then a very good twist. I think this one scared me the most whenever I watched it the first time, because I watched these like back in high school, and by the end of it, like I was legitimately creeped out. I was like, man, like I can't believe they went there. But I still enjoy it. Very great segment. The last segment that we'll be covering is Halloween Party. A group of young men attend a party on Halloween night at the wrong house and face paranormal phenomena. This one is also a very good one. I would say this one's more feel good than the others. The main characters, you like them a lot. And in this movie where all the dudes are complete slime balls, these guys are more relatable. They're more nice. I think anyone who's had a lot of good friends that you like to go drinking with, you can kind of relate to these guys, like going to a costume party, just pulling shenanigans, but these guys just happen to go in the wrong house. And even while they're in the wrong house and there's some like weird stuff going on, you're still kind of laughing with them. You're pulling for them. But eventually they get up to the attic where these people are doing like an exorcism on this girl who's like all tied up. I mean, kudos to these guys. Like the whole house starts shaking, things go flying. And if it were me, I probably just would have ran out. Paranormal stuff, if stuff goes flying across the room and I'm hearing demons yell and all that, I'm gonna turn into a complete chicken. I'm bolting. But these guys are like, wait, we have to go back. And they like go back up and save the girl. And like at first, my first watch, I recall thinking that was very foolish. I'm like, oh, that's how these guys are going to die. Which, in the very end, that is true. But they die going out doing a very good deed. Which again, the guys in this movie don't really do. So they go up and they save the girl from the cult. And as they're leaving the house, there's these arms sticking out of the wall. There's very cool stuff. Very non-CGI. Well, were the arms CGI? I don't think they were. They might have been. I don't know. If they were CGI, it wasn't bad CGI. Because even today, while on the rewatch, I was like, like it looks good. So I enjoyed all the ghostly effects when they left the house. And then in the beginning of the segment, they get stopped at the train tracks because the train has to go through. And ultimately, that's where their demise is. Their car kind of stalls out on the road. The girl vanishes from their car. And then she turns into like a ghost or demon, and scares them. And then the train comes and, that's how they get killed. It's pretty wild. Again, the guys are very likable. And this is just a very likable segment. And it was a very good one to end on. I said an anthology, it should start off with a bang. It should also end on a very good segment, which again, this one does. The two in the middle, the second and third, those were kind of iffy. And I think they place these very cleverly. Because again, you start off on a really good note, and then you end on a good note. And I feel like that really kind of helped this franchise keep going. And man, oh man, there's some good directors tied to this film too. Ty West, the guys who made the Scream movies, I'm totally spacing their name right now. Radio Silence, that's their names. But yeah, overall, very good start to the franchise. I can't wait to rewatch the second VHS. There is one segment I do recall, and I recall it being very good. So I look forward to watching that and doing a review on it. And I hope you guys tune in for that one if you tuned in for this one. If you haven't already, could you give this video a like? Because it gets it out to other people. And if you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe so you know when the next ones are coming out. Again, if you're still listening, I thank you so much. And until next time.